Welcome to the Hungarian History Podcast. I am Santai Gábor. Today, we dive into a story that is often forgotten beyond our borders. Hungary's centuries-long stand against the Ottoman Empire. For over 300 years, this small kingdom stood on the front line of a clash that shaped the future of Europe. In this time, Hungarian history took its rightful place in the broader story of Western civilization, not as a footnote, but as a fortress. It is the fifth episode. Last time we explored the first 90 years of the Ottoman Wars, ending with the great victory at Nándorfehérvár, Belgrade, in 1456, where Hunyadi János triumphed over the Turks. He died just days later, but can you still hear the bells at noon? They ring to this day, echoing his heroism. The Pulsatio Meridiana, the midday bell toll, was decreed by Pope Calixtus III on June 29, 1456, as a call for all Christians to pray for those fighting against the Turks. In this episode, we will explore the second phase of the Ottoman Wars, focusing on the reign of King Matthias Corvinus. Originally, I planned to take the story all the way to the Battle of Mohács in 1526, but history had other plans. Two strong reasons led me to concentrate solely on Matthias. First, the conflict moved beyond the battlefield into the political arena, demanding deeper explanation. Simply listing events would be misleading. Second, Mohács is such a turning point that it deserves its own episode. To understand its full significance, we must examine the political, financial, and the European context that led there. Let us continue our story after 1456, when Hunyadi János saved Hungary and everything west of it. But not all shared in the victory. The same year, Moldavia fell under Ottoman vassalage. And darker clouds loomed still. Young King Habsburg László V, one of Hungary's most hated rulers, executed Hunyadi's elder son, also named László. Who knows what further ruin the king might have brought, had a tumor not claimed his life in 1457 at just 17. He died before he could execute Hunyadi's younger son, Mátyás, who was still held captive in Prague. Matthias, or as we call him Mátyás, was born in 1443. He is remembered as one of Hungary's greatest kings, a powerful Renaissance ruler, known as Mátyás the Righteous. He never gave up his father's goal of driving the Turks out of Europe. But he understood the scale of the threat and knew Hungary couldn't do it alone. His solution was bold: to build a strong Central European empire. Only a united power could stand against the Ottomans. In his vision, Buda would have been the center, and the Balkan states would serve as buffer zones. As history unfolded, ironically, the Habsburgs later created this empire, but with Vienna as the center, and Hungary as the buffer zone, because 5 years after taking Vienna, Matthias died before his vision was realized. Critics accuse him of neglecting the Ottoman threat, but ask yourself, were Bohemia, Poland, or Austria rushing to join a Hungarian-led crusade? No. Matthias, or Mátyás, learned the hard way. If he marched east, his so-called allies would stab him in the back. But before we judge him, let's examine what he actually achieved. Mátyás was crowned King of Hungary in 1456 at just 16. His rule began with an immediate Ottoman threat. The Turks took Galamboc's Golubach castle on the lower Danube. Yet the young king struck back, retaking the fortress within a year. Next, he turned to Bosnia. In 1463, his forces recaptured Jajca castle and much of the region. But while fighting the Ottomans, Mátyás faced another battle, proving himself to his own barons. They expected a puppet. He gave them an iron fist. Over his 32-year reign, he forged Hungary into a military powerhouse. He created Europe's first and largest standing army, the Black Army. With them, he crushed rebellions, conquered Bohemia, and carved deep into Austria. But Mátyás never forgot the Ottomans. He conquered new lands for two reasons: for one, for resources, to fund his final war against the Turks; for two, for security, to protect his rear from betrayal. Even while fighting Bohemia and Austria, he strengthened Hungary's defenses. He built a second line of forts behind the southern border, a shield against the Turks. In 1657, Zrínyi Miklós Nikolazinski wrote about Mátyás. This king had not spent the country's wealth on either crazy buildings or insanely expensive receptions of guests, or for making idiots richer, but rather for his homeland strengthening, making it more glorious and famous. Who would not wish to have such a king with his own added value? On the king's army Zrínyi wrote, Qui bene impera, bene obeditur. Who commands well, will be well obeyed. He continued, King Mátyás could never have achieved such greatness without discipline. An army without order is not an army, it is chaos. And we Hungarians? We no longer even understand discipline, and its reason is that King Mátyás has died. Here he may have been thinking of the old Hungarian saying born after Mátyás' death, Mátyás is dead, and with him the truth. Zrínyi added, Mátyás' army fought two emperors at once, and matched them both in skill and fortune. Well, the famous Black Army of Mátyás had its roots in Bohemian and Swiss mercenary units, blending Hussite warfare with early shot and pike tactics. But this formidable force represented only the core of Hungary's military might. The full army Mátyás could mobilize was far larger. What set Mátyás apart was his extensive use of firearms. At its peak, according to Professor Szendrei János, Hungary's standing army numbered about 35,000 men, comprising cavalry, infantry, artillery, and engineers. The numbers tell the story. In 1468, during the Bohemian campaign, Mátyás fielded 11,000 cavalry and 5,000 infantry. By 1487, at his grand military parade in Bécsújhely, Wiener Neustadt, near Vienna, his forces had swelled to 20,000 cavalry and 8,000 elite Black Army infantry. The army also included 900 Hussite-style war wagons, a mobile fortress system that gave Hungarian forces unmatched flexibility. However, on the parade must have been displayed only about 3,000 of them. This wasn't just an army, it was Europe's first truly modern military machine, combining firepower, mobility, and disciplined organization on a scale unseen in 15th century Christendom. Contemporary chronicler Bonfinius recorded how these troops moved with such swift precision to shouted commands that spectators couldn't hide their astonishment. The sheer scale of Mátyás military becomes clear when we examine his deployments. In 1480, while leading an army into Bosnia, he simultaneously sent General Knjipa to Serbia with 32,000 men. 3 years later, he threatened the German Emperor with one force, while keeping 70,000 troops poised to strike the Ottomans. And these numbers don't include the permanent garrisons manning Hungary's double line of southern border forts and the king's substantial Danube river fleet. For context, these were staggering numbers that dwarfed most contemporary European armies. The forces of King Mátyás held the Ottomans at bay along the southern frontier and successfully repelled their raids in 1474 and 1475, when Turkish units reached as far as Várad, or Radea castle, in Transylvania. Meanwhile, in 1475, the Crimean Tatar Khanate became a vassal of the Ottoman Empire. From then on, the fierce Crimean horsemen frequently joined the dreaded Akinji raiders in their attacks on Hungarian lands. That same year, Voivode Stephen III of Moldavia, supported by Hungarian and Polish troops, won a resounding victory against a combined army of Turks, Crimean Tatars, Wallachians, and Bulgarians. In 1476, the tide turned again when Hungarian forces captured the fortress of Szabadj from the Ottomans. It was perhaps the most significant military triumph of King Mátyás, and one in which he personally led his troops to victory. In 1479, the Ottomans launched a major attack on Transylvania. It was more than just a large raid. King Mátyás wrote that the combined Ottoman and Wallachian army had 43 to 45,000 men, but they were crushed in the Battle of Bradfield-Kenyérmező. Even if the real number was only half of that, it was still a major Christian victory. Since the battles of Nicopolis 1396 and Varna 1444, people believed that the Ottomans couldn't be beaten in open battle. But Kinizsi Pál and Báthori István proved otherwise. With only 15,000 men, they defeated the invaders. This time, 800 Serbian heavy cavalry also fought on the Hungarian side. The Christians lost about 3,000 men. The Ottoman army was almost completely destroyed. Much treasure was captured, and many Christian prisoners were freed from Ottoman slavery. After the battle, Kinizsi led a campaign deep into Serbia, recapturing several territories. Because Ottoman raids had depopulated southern Hungary, Kinizsi brought thousands of Serbian settlers in 1480 to repopulate the region. The political scene was just as fierce as the battlefield. Mátyás had bold ambitions against the Ottomans. At the time, the Ottoman Empire faced internal conflict, giving Mátyás a real chance. He even claimed to be related to Prince Jam, son of Sultan Mehmed II and brother of the new Sultan, Bayezid II. Jam had tried to take the throne, but failed and fled to Italy. There he became a hostage of Pope Innocent VIII. Over time, his refugee turned into a prison. The Pope saw an opportunity and offered to hold Jam for a price. Sultan Bayezid agreed, happy to keep his rival far away from power. In 1489, he promised the Pope an annual tribute of 40,000 gold ducats and sent a relic, the Holy Spear, to Rome as thanks. How did Mátyás respond? He demanded that Jan be brought to Hungary, hoping to use him in a campaign against the Ottomans. He wrote to the Pope, "Your Holiness knows well with what a burning desire I wish to gain possession of Prince Jan, the younger brother of the Turkish Sultan. The Prince himself desires this, and many great leaders in Turkey support it as well. He is my blood relative, since the sister of my grandmother was captured by the Turks and became the wife of the Turkish Sultan. The current Sultan and Prince Jan are descended from her." He continued, "Prince Jan's followers assured me that, with their support, I could drive the current Sultan back into the Caucasus Mountains. I also hoped that I might convert the Turks to Christianity, or at least I could make a better riverbed for the issues. Yet, despite all this, your Holiness offers me no support and refuses to hear my pleas. Worse, your Holiness behaves as though you are envious of my authority and glory. It was not enough that you listened to the instigation of my enemies and told the King of France not to hand over the Turkish prince to me. Now the poor prince may be sold to the Venetians for a few 100,000 gold pieces. But do not believe they seek the common good of Christendom. On the contrary, they plan to hand him over to his brother." When Mátyás learned that the Pope planned to sell Prince Jan to the Sultan of Egypt for gold, he burst out before the papal legate Peccinoli. "I swear on the cross of Christ, if Prince Jan is taken overseas, I will be the one to lead the Turkish Sultan to Italy." Peccinoli later wrote that the king spoke with such a fury that it seemed as if a flood of flames burst from his mouth, nose, and eyes. Let me cite King Mátyás' own words from a letter he later wrote to the Pope. "It seems as though your Holiness wishes to declare war on the Turks, who are allies of Venice. Yet the Turks cannot be attacked from the sea. And as for the Venetian fleet, what noble deeds have they ever done for the good of Christendom? Their ships serve only Venetian interests. They carry weapons, tools, and goods straight to the enemies of Christianity. The Turks earn more profit from Venetian imports than from half the income of their own empire. And still the Venetians, who are more shameless than the Turks themselves, enjoy high favor in your Holiness' eyes." In another letter Mátyás reasoned, "And your Holiness denies the Turk prince to me, listening to their advice, although your Holiness knows very well that only the Hungarians can fight the Turks with success. In short, the Venetians are now the advisers and allies of the Papal State. They rule on behalf of your Holiness. Meanwhile, your Holiness sides with others and scorns me, not knowing me well, and when I approach your Holiness, you push me away. Your Holiness, just go on then and deny the Turk prince to me. Following the advice of others, I have fulfilled my responsibilities. But if the Venetians finally get their prey and the fire of danger starts to burn, I will show the world that I do not belong among the last rulers of this earth. Then the Papal States, Italy, and the whole of Christendom will feel what it means to have sacrificed the Turk prince." Alas, Mátyás found himself in a difficult position when planning his long-awaited campaign against the Ottomans. He first had to secure his western, northern and southern borders before he could turn his attention to the Turks. But did Mátyás really allow the Turks to invade and take Italy? The truth is quite the opposite. When the Ottomans failed to break through Hungary's defences, Sultan Mehmed, the conqueror of Constantinopolis, sent Gedik Ahmed Pasha with a fleet carrying 20,000 soldiers to Italy. In 1480 they landed in Aquila and swept through the region, killing approximately 12,000 people before capturing Otranto. In Otranto, the Turks executed 800 citizens who refused to convert to Islam and held the city for 13 months. It was Mátyás who finally liberated the town in 1481, sending General Magyar Balázs with just 2,100 men of the Black Army to drive out the invaders. Without this decisive action, the Turks might have reinforced their position and marched on Rome itself. The year 1482 brought further victories when Magyar Balázs defeated the Bey of Smederevo. With the southern front secured, Mátyás turned west and captured Vienna in 1485. But tragedy struck in 1490, when King Mátyás died suddenly, some whispered of poison, before he could launch his grand campaign against the Ottomans. His death created a power vacuum that the Turks quickly exploited. A side note, within 10 years the unfortunate Prince Jem was also poisoned. Scarcely had Mátyás died in Vienna when a large Ottoman force broke into Transylvania, pushing as far as Svárad or Adel. The loss of the righteous king was so deeply felt that even 167 years later, Zrínyi Miklós Nikola Zrinski still mourned him with tearful words. Either you should have never been born, or you should have lived forever. As we conclude today's episode, darkness gathers on Hungary's horizon. In our next part, we will walk the treacherous path that led to Mohács, that fateful day in 1526 when the kingdom's destiny changed forever. This has been the Hungarian History Podcast. If you have enjoyed our journey through the reign of Mátyás, I would be grateful if you would follow the podcast, the only English voice about Hungarian history. For those who would like to support this work directly, you can subscribe on Substack, join me on Patreon, or visit Buy Me a Cafe. All links are in the show notes. Thank you for keeping Hungary's history alive. Until next time, this is Szántai Gábor signing off. Goodbye, sziasztok, viszonthallásra!